Alright everyone, welcome to a brand new week on Celtic AM. We've got a lot to chat about today as we look back on Saturday's 2-2 draw with Aberdeen. We've got some post-match comments, some of my thoughts having rewatched the game, your comments of course, a few other things, and we'll look ahead to what is another pretty big week. The matches keep coming. We've got Motherwell at Fir Park next Sunday. Before then, the small matter of a trip to Atalanta in the UEFA Champions League. I think that's all. Yes, we may mention a certain result from Rugby Park yesterday as well. Right, on Saturday, Stevie joined me from outside Celtic Park for the match reaction. Please feel free to give that video a watch once we're done here. It was a pretty frantic, hectic afternoon. I mean, you take the last 15 minutes, for example. There was enough in the last 15 minutes in terms of incidents, chances, VAR discussion, probably to fill a match, if not two. I think it was a really entertaining game. I think anyone who went along to Celtic Park at the weekend, regardless of who they wanted to win, and obviously we always want Celtic to win more than anything. I mean, let's not rewrite how we feel as fans. We'd much rather Celtic win a drab game than we draw a really entertaining game. But the reality is anyone who went along to Celtic Park got their money's worth. I certainly enjoyed watching the match, even if I was kicking and heading every ball in the last 15 minutes and pretty frustrated at full time. So I say it was an entertaining game. I don't think it was a game particularly high in quality. I thought, for me anyway, it was a match of chances, a hell of a lot of clear-cut chances. The vast majority of them missed. It was a match of stray passes, some mistakes, lots of tackles, lots of bookings and plenty of VAR chat as well. Even though the ref never actually went to the side of the pitch and looked at the monitor, VAR was pretty heavily involved in the game. There were two real moments of quality for me in the match. The first one from a Celtic player, Arne Engels, his pass down the side for Kyogo, 25 odd minutes into the game. Kyogo puts it across, Hatate puts it into the net. You could say Hatate's finish on its own was pretty good as well, but for me the pass from Engels was real quality. Second half, the other bit of real quality in the game, Jamie McGrath's pass for Esther Sockler, who'd just come on. A fabulous pass. I don't know if you've had a chance to really look at it again, but it's like a half volley sliced pass through the defence. Yes, you can be critical of the Celtic backline. I know Liam Scales is getting a bit of criticism as one commenter who reckons that as good as Scales has been this season, we should be looking at getting Trusty and Carter Vickers together. I thought Scales generally had a good game. I think he didn't look brilliant for that Aberdeen goal, but equally I think, and this might be a theme of today's video, I think rather than just looking at Celtic, sometimes you've got to look at the opposition as well, and Aberdeen did a lot of things well on Saturday. The pass from McGrath is fabulous, so that was real quality. I thought it was interesting how both teams scored two goals in pretty quick succession. Us in the first half, Aberdeen in the second half. The first goal came as a result of real quality. We've spoken about it. Engels for our first goal, McGrath's for their first goal. And the second goals were courtesy really of defensive mistakes. Their defender, I think Malloy, the guy's name, passes the ball straight to Hatate. Kyogo ends up scoring for our second goal. And Daisen Maida's really, really slack, sloppy pass that leads to Graham Shinney's goal. So yeah, I don't think, talking about ourselves, I don't think it was a particularly bad performance from Celtic. Equally, I don't think it was the vintage Celtic that we've seen at points so far this season. To be honest, we've seen for the majority of this season up until recent weeks. The team are clearly not playing at the level they were prior to the Dortmund game, and you may have your thoughts on whether that humbling in Germany has had a negative effect on the players. I know a lot of people feel that it has, and the team are still suffering as a result of how horrible a night that was. Personally, I don't buy that to the same extent. I just think Celtic are going through a little bit of an inevitable dip. Given how well we played at the start of the season, that was never going to continue all the way through. And I think, yeah, over the past couple of domestic games, Ross County, Aberdeen, it hasn't been at the free-flowing level that we saw previously. When we click into gear, we're still really good to watch. We do great things, and Celtic Place is still a very happy place to be. But I think generally over the past few games, and especially on Saturday, there was a fair bit of sloppiness. I think, to be honest, first half, I thought we controlled the first half. First 10 minutes, fair enough, that was pretty even. I think both teams were kind of sizing each other out a little bit. I think from the moment when Mitov, the Aberdeen goalkeeper, made that mistake when he came out and tried to slide to keep the ball in, and Engels got it and eventually hit the top of the crossbar. I think from that point, that really got us going after a kind of nervous-ish start, and we really controlled the rest of the first half without, as I say, being as good as we have been at the start of the season. Still thought there was some poor passing and balls behind people and giving the ball away pretty easily, but generally that was a game we were really in control of, and you would have been hard pressed to find any Celtic fan not feeling good about our chances 2-0 up at half time. I felt even second half, the way we started, we had a few corners at the start of the second half, looked like we were pushing for a third goal, and then, as I say, Aberdeen's goal kind of comes out of nothing. Great pass from McGrath, really well taken from Sockler, and suddenly the atmosphere inside Celtic Park is very different. People are kind of looking over their shoulder a little bit. Aberdeen have got a bit of confidence, and Aberdeen really still have nothing to lose at that stage. They get their equaliser, and I felt at that point we really let some slack play into our game. Alex Vai had his moment on the halfway line when he gave it away, and I think it was Niskanen ran through, and Liam Scales did very well to put it out for a corner. Maida had his really slack moment for Aberdeen's equaliser. Even Kasper Schmeichel after that had a really kind of weird moment where he dilly-dallied on the ball, and that actually led to Aberdeen's third goal that was subsequently ruled out by VAR for a handball from Duk. And it was a handball. I know some Aberdeen fans feel that was very harsh. It was clearly, it hit Duk's hand, and harsh or not, if it does that and ends up going into the net, then you have to chalk it off. But generally at that stage, I thought we were a little bit all over the place. And Celtic Park was, I wouldn't say the support turned on the team completely, but there was certainly a bit of anxiety and frustration in the air. I actually felt the final 25 minutes or so, Celtic were pretty good. I thought we won the ball back quickly and were really pressing and going for that third goal. Aberdeen had very little at that stage. They were just holding on for dear life. I know they had a couple of counter-attacks. Morris had a shot that Schmeichel did well, and there was another one, I think, late on Sockler, but Vi did well to come across, but he was offside anyway. So generally in the last 25 minutes, it was Celtic bombarding the Aberdeen goal, and I thought we played well. We just lacked that final clinical finishing to be able to win the game. But I was actually tallying up the chances we had in the final 15 minutes. So this is 85 minutes onwards. So final 5 minutes plus 10 odd minutes of stoppage time. And listen, these are all in the last 15 minutes of the game. So James Forrest has that shot straight at Mitov. Should probably score. Forrest then has a shot just wide of the post. It's a tough one, and he does well to get any shot away, but again, could pretty easily have gone in the corner. We then have Ida's goal that's disallowed for Johnson's foul on Mitov. It's soft for me, but I have to admit it's a foul. We know that goalkeepers are heavily protected. That's nothing new. Johnson probably does enough to foul him. We then have the one where Bernardo's at the back post and has a tap in, but the ball, I think it's saved from Mitov, just kind of goes over his foot. It's a bit of a strange one, but he wasn't really to blame there. James Forrest right after that has a shot over the bar, should hit the target. We then have the free kick right on the edge when Luke McCowan is taken out. I thought it was going to be a penalty. Again, right decision from the referee to give a free kick, because the replays clearly showed that the contact was just outside the box, but outside the box nonetheless. Disappointed we didn't make more of that free kick. Don't know what we ended up doing, taking it kind of short, and then Ida has a shot, and it was just a bit poor. We then late on have Adam Ida's point blank range header, should score. Great corner from Bernardo, and then a couple of seconds on from that, Duk's block on the line. 100 odd minutes at this stage, if not more. Alistair Johnson it was, and it's really hard to tell if it's a handball from Duk from the replays we've seen. I know there's a fair bit of debate about it. It's probably not for me. I think that I've not seen any conclusive evidence that it was Duk's arm or hand. So yeah, it was clearly there was a lot of missed chances from Celtic in that late stage of the game. I think also it was a pretty extraordinary defensive display from Aberdeen, and sometimes you've just got to compliment the opposition for throwing bodies on the line, literally in Duk's case right at the end. They had 14 blocks on Saturday, Aberdeen, which seems a pretty high number to me. And having watched the game back, like the amount of times we would just find a little bit of space you thought to get a shot away, and some Aberdeen defender would come from somewhere and just get their head on it or find a way to block it. There's one in the first half, is it Rubizic, the Aberdeen centre-back, blocks a Rio Hatate shot that looked goal-bound and takes it right to the face. And late on, as we say, Duk on the line. And there was just so many examples of Aberdeen just putting their bodies on the line to stop us scoring. So I just think it was a mixture of things on Saturday. Celtic not at their very, very best. If we had been at our very best, we'd have won the game, regardless of how Aberdeen played. I think we let them back into the game, a really sloppy period, 50 to 60 minutes. Brendan Rodgers called it a careless period and was quite critical of the team for that. Hard to disagree with that at all. But yeah, for me, late on was the moment. I mean, if any of those chances, we're talking 8 pretty good chances, if just one of them had gone in, we'd have won the game. And it seemed a little bit like a remarkable event that none of them found the back of the net. But I guess that was Aberdeen just, as I say, putting everything on the line to try and get a result. So yeah, as always, this is nothing new when Celtic fail to win a match, especially at Celtic Park, but really any domestic game. There's always going to be a fair bit of criticism for the team and certain players, and we'll come on to some of those comments in a minute. But yeah, for me, just one of those afternoons. I think if we had have won the game really late on, there wouldn't have been too much criticism of the team. I think people would generally have been looking at a really exciting match that would come out the right end of. So it's just one of those things that we didn't manage to get that goal. I think we can play a lot better, and I think we will going forward. I'm pretty happy to be a little frustrated at full time, and I was frustrated at full time. But to be honest, the frustration didn't last for too long. I've certainly moved on by now. I think we've got too many big games coming up, other matches to look forward to stew on that one for too long. It's a point we move on. Right, let's do some of your comments then. We're starting with DVP36. It was exciting, want to win obviously, but sometimes it doesn't run for you. But I'm also glad our competition will come from Aberdeen, further adding to the misery across the water. Obviously, you always want to win, that goes without saying. But, you know, it's a draw. And I think generally it's probably the way the game panned out. I don't think it's going to be like catastrophic for a season or anything like that. I think Celtic are going to be fine. And it just really probably adds a lot to these games we've got coming up against Aberdeen. We play them in less than 2 weeks, League Cup semi-final at Hampden. We've actually got them at the start of December at Pittodrie, a midweek night game, which is going to be brilliant as well. So we've got big games coming up against Aberdeen, and I just think that at the moment they are our main rivals. You can't really argue with that. That may change going forward, and Rangers might get into gear, and don't worry, we'll discuss them a little bit at the end. But at the moment, Aberdeen are our main challengers. If you look at the league table, it's Aberdeen that are the ones that are really challenging us up there and matching our record at the moment. And yeah, just looking ahead to that League Cup game, like I feel like there's genuine jeopardy for us in that match. I still expect us to go and win that, but that to me feels like a match that, you know, could be a real challenge for us, and I think it will be a real challenge for us. Aberdeen are a very confident side. There's going to be a great atmosphere inside Hampden that night, and it's a game I'm really looking forward to. So generally, I think it was if you take a more general look at Scottish football, I don't think it was the worst thing ever that it was a close match on Saturday. It would have been even better if we'd have found a way to win it late on. But I think it makes things interesting. And as I say, I think Celtic are going to be absolutely fine. You're never going to win every single game. We've got Huey501 saying, I think there's been a huge overreaction from Celtic fans. It was a superb game of football, and on another day we would have won it at the end. We move forward and remember that it takes time for a team to gel properly. I still think the signs are good. I feel the signs are good too. You've got to remember, you go back 3 weeks and we're all absolutely raving about this team. I don't think we can suddenly then go after like literally 3 games, one of which we've won, one of which we've drawn and could easily have won, and the other was just a complete write-off and an awful night in Dortmund, but against a good side. I don't think you can suddenly then look at the team and start picking holes. And I've seen a lot of stuff and people comparing this current team and the current situation to last season and saying that potentially we'll go through a period, a bit of a collapse in mid-season like we had this time last year. And I really don't see that happening. I just think this is a totally different team. I know fans are always going to overreact to an extent. It's not just Celtic fans that do this. Every football fan these days is like that, especially when you have like social media and things like that, where you always feel you have to be given an opinion. And like, I'm not perfect either. I do these videos and don't always get the tone right. And I'm sure people will be watching this going, he should be far harsher on the team after this. He's letting them away with it. Everyone's got their opinion. There's not a right or wrong. I just think generally this is a Celtic team that has shown a lot so far this season. I think we've kind of been spoiled with the start we made to the season. Won every game for I don't know how long at the start, scored so many goals. Every game the team were showing up and playing really well, and that was never going to last. But as we look at it right now, we're still in a really, really good place. We've got 22 points from 24 in the league. We're into the League Cup semi-final. We've got 3 points from 6 in the UEFA Champions League and so many games to look forward to. So, yeah, Celtic are never going to win every game. And I think it's fair to acknowledge the team have hit a little bit of a dip in recent weeks. But I just genuinely, I'd be lying if I came on and said that I was really concerned, because I'm just not. I just think that, as I say, we've hit a little bit of a dip, but we'll be absolutely fine going forward. And that's how I feel. Right, Mantis Toboggan, our lack of depth in the wide areas was a bit exposed. Maida had a stinker, but all we had to replace him was James Forrest, who's much better suited to playing on the right. Palma is clearly not fancied by the manager, so that just leaves Yang, who also clearly isn't rated and is also right-footed. When Maida and Kuhn are fit and playing well, everything is rosy, but it is very unrealistic to expect the both of them to go August to May in top form and unscathed by injury. It isn't going to happen. Top priority in January has to be a winger or two, and also to get Palma and Yang out the building, because if Brendan Rodgers doesn't rate them, then there's no point in keeping them around. Mantis Toboggan, I agree totally with your points you make there. I think, yeah, clearly Maida and Kuhn, who were like sublime at the start of the season, over the past few games haven't hit that level. I think Maida in particular, the last couple of games, he's been really poor, Daizen Maida. And he's maybe stayed on the pitch a little bit longer than he should have. And to be honest, with him travelling all the way to the other side of the world, there's maybe an argument that if we had a better option to play in the left wing, Maida wouldn't have started on Saturday. I think James Forrest has been really good when he's come on the past couple of games. Ross County, Aberdeen. I know his shooting was off on Saturday, big time. But I think he does make a difference in these games. When Maida's brilliant, Maida's brilliant. When he's not, and he's kind of sloppy and it's not happening for him, I think Forrest is a good sub. And I'd like to see Brendan Rodgers making that sub a little bit earlier at times, maybe at half-time sometimes if it's not happening for Maida. I know he brings you more than James Forrest off the ball, but I think James Forrest, for me, is still a really underrated player at Celtic. Somehow, even all these years on, I think he's underrated. And I think in these games, when defences are packed in, he's able to find those little gaps, a bit like Luke McCowan does, in a slightly different way. But generally, on your point about signing another winger, I think we have to. I was surprised that we didn't sign another one in the summer. It was maybe just a case of we had so many other positions needing filled that the winger went down the priority list a little bit. But I do think in January we will sign one winger. And ideally, I think on the left-hand side, I agree. I think James Forrest is better on the right, but Forrest is kind of playing the role of left or right, depending on who Brendan Rodgers takes off for him. which I think is fine. I don't think he's bad on the left, but I think certainly signing someone in January would be good. Just in terms of another area that I think isn't working properly at the moment, and maybe playing a part in our little dip we've had in recent weeks, I think Kyogo's not playing at his top level at the moment, and Adamida hasn't exactly, come on and made you go, right, I want you to start going forward. Like, I still feel like Kyogo's our best option to start on Wednesday night, but I don't feel Kyogo's playing particularly well, even though he scored on Saturday. I think if just one of Kyogo or Ida can catch fire in the coming weeks, I think that will really lift us a bit. So I'm holding on to that hope as well. I think that's a matter of time before one of those two, or hopefully both of them, really hit the level we know they can. Not that either of them have been horrendous, they're still scoring goals, but not at the level we know they can be. Right, we've got Goody 2 views. Ha, genius name. Short corners are such a waste. Put the ball in the box. Might get a head on it, might draw a foul. I knew this would come up. Stevie mentioned it after the game on Saturday as well. So we won the 18 corners on Saturday, as I said to Stevie. We actually only got to take 17 of them. Thank you, Nick Walsh, great refereeing. 8 of those 17 were taken short. 9 of them were crossed into the box. So I don't know, that may be a little bit different to what you'd imagined having watched the game. I certainly felt like we took far more short, but more crossed in than taken short on Saturday. I get that the short corners are something that annoys people. Personally, I don't know why it annoys people so much, but a lot of people just want balls crossed into the box. I'm not that fussed. I think short corners have a place definitely for a team like Celtic when you're trying to get teams out of position domestically and create overloads. I think short corners can be really good and speeding the game up and not allowing teams to get set. But I think equally putting it into the box is good as well. So I don't actually have a massive problem with that 50-50 for a game like Saturday. I thought our corners were really good when we did cross them in. Engels had some great deliveries. Bernardo had some great deliveries late on. That one right at the end for Ida when he should have scored was a great ball in. So yeah, it's not something that particularly bothers me corner-wise. Right, I just want to point out that all I've said so far in this video is how I felt after the game on Saturday. I was pretty frustrated that we weren't able to win the game, that we let the lead slip and couldn't get that goal late on. But as I said earlier, to be honest, the frustration hasn't lasted too long. I'm kind of over it now and trying to take the positives from it. And the main positive for me is that Celtic aren't playing really badly at the moment. We're just, as I keep saying, just not quite hitting that top level, but I'm pretty sure that will come pretty soon. Having said all that, I think it's fair to say that when you support a team from Glasgow, one of the main two, the fortunes of the other side can often impact how you feel about your own team. I'm not saying that's right, it's just the way things are. And as you will probably know by now, Rangers travelled to Kilmarnock yesterday. And if you don't know how that match went, this image from the Sky Sports studio shortly after full time will probably give you a good idea. Yes, Rangers lost again. They were hilariously bad, like seriously bad. If you didn't watch the game, I can't put into words how bad they were. If you think we've got problems, and I don't know if you do, they've got massive ones. And I've been very consistent this season, not just me, but John and Stevie have as well, in terms of wanting us to be judged against European teams we're facing in the Champions League, rather than our rivals Rangers, because they're in a bit of a state, and I genuinely believe that. But you can't deny that Rangers struggling doesn't make you feel a bit better, improves your mood, and probably gives you a bit more of an overall feeling, a context for things, a bit of perspective, I guess. So yeah, we're 6 points clear alongside Aberdeen of Rangers. Ourselves and Aberdeen have somehow extended the gap despite drawing at the weekend, and I still expect us to win the league pretty comfortably. We'll see about the cups, but at this moment of speaking, you can't argue that Aberdeen aren't our biggest challengers. In terms of this week and moving ahead, we go to Bergamo, where we face Atalanta on Wednesday evening, and for all of the general optimism on today's video and me telling you things maybe aren't bad at all at Celtic and all of that stuff, I must admit that I'm not particularly confident or even really looking forward to Wednesday night. I think it could be another pretty tough away night for us in Europe. Atalanta won 2-0 yesterday away from home against Venezia. They are 6th in Serie A. They're in pretty good form, and I think it may be a pretty long night on Wednesday, but you never know. We will continue the build-up to the game on tomorrow's video. We're going to find out more about Atalanta, as is the custom before these European games, and we'll probably try and convince ourselves that Celtic can somehow win the game. Please don't allow me to get to that stage. I've been scarred too much from believing something was in the air ahead of the Dortmund game. Anyway, we'll reconvene tomorrow. In the meantime, please find Celtic AM on your chosen podcast app. Links will be in the description. Please just take a couple of minutes to do that. You can listen to all of our videos as audio-only podcasts. And yeah, I'll chat to you this time tomorrow.